The porch went red, then blue, then the kind of white that makes everything look like a mistake. 3 cruisers idled at the curb, cell phones were already up behind the hedges, and the HOA president Marla Pike clipboard and perfect hair pointed straight at my wife. "That's her," she said, all sweet and venom. She threatened the board, "Do your job." Dana stood on the top step in a gray hoodie and old sneakers, hands open calm, in a way that made the night feel smaller, and I knew why, because the badge in her back pocket weighed more than everyone's opinion on Birch Lane. "Ma'am, ID," the rookie said, voice stretched a little too tight. He had that look young officers get when training and adrenaline collide, one hand floating near cuffs like they might leap out on their own. Dana didn't flinch. "Call your sergeant," she told him, soft as a lullaby that still means business. Marla laughed, "A bell you want to throw a towel over." "Oh please, she thinks she's special." The body cam beeped, neighbors whispered, our old dog pressed into my knee, and Dana slid out the leather wallet. The porch light hit gold, and the street sucked in a breath it couldn't let out. 3 months earlier, we'd carried moving boxes up these same steps in Cedar Hollow, a cul-de-sac with maples, and a sign at the entrance that promised order, like it was a product you could unbox. I write code from the spare bedroom. Dana disappears for days and nights because the state can't schedule trouble politely. We didn't advertise her job. She liked being just Dana, wave at dusk, help carry groceries, Dana. Then the letters started. Mailbox, not to type C. Little free library, unapproved structure. Grass noted at 2.75 inches, which I swear is a measurement invented to make you feel petty when you complain. Our neighbor, Mr. Alvarez, retired bus driver knees, like weather vanes, brought brownies, and told us it was mostly a friendly place until the clipboard shows up. Donna answered emails with pictures, and patients offered to stain the post to match the fence. Reminded me over dinner that kindness travels farther than volume. I wanted to believe that would be enough. The HOA meeting felt like a middle school assembly with cookies. A banner said, "Neighbors First," while Marla read violations like she was narrating a true crime podcast. She didn't look at us when she mentioned the library box at 23 Birch, but everyone else did. Someone asked what work Dana did. Dana smiled and said she drove a gray SUV and made sure kids got popsicles on hot days. Later, Marla's email arrived with that cheerful dagger tone, "Fines pending order must be maintained. Imagine if everyone did whatever they wanted." Donna watered the sunflowers and said, "Imagine if everyone led with care." The night everything tipped, it wasn't about sunflowers. Mr. Alvarez received a notice demanding removal of his small aluminum ramp. He held the paper on our porch like it was heavier than it looked and said, "If I take it off, I take off my courage too." Donna promised to speak. At the next meeting, she stood up steady as a pillar and said, "A ramp isn't decor, it's dignity." A guy in the back shouted, "Rules are rules." Dana nodded and said, "Then good rules protect people." Marla's hand slapped the table. "Security," she snapped, even though the only 2 kids in the room were passing out water. Someone dialed 911 and we left before the vote, not because we were afraid, but because sometimes you take the match out of the room. Sirens found us anyway. Cruisers rolled in soft lights, chewing up the dark. The rookie climbed the steps. "ID now." Dana raised the wallet. The badge caught the porch light. And because nights can still get dumber, he cuffed her anyway, hands shaking, fear louder than reason. Phones lifted, Marla giggled, and our daughter's face hovered in the window like a moth. Then Mr. Alvarez stumbled on his own steps across the way. His knee buckled, his head hit concrete with a sound I swear the whole street heard in their bones. The older officer vaulted a hedge and shouted for medics. The rookie froze between duty and panic, and a plain gray sedan slid to the curb like it had been listening the entire time. A liaison from the state agent Rowan jacket opened just enough to flash a seal that doesn't beg for attention, walked up, cool as a list. "Release her," he told the rookie. "Now." The sergeant arrived, checked credentials, nodded to the badge, and the cuffs clicked off. No celebration, no gloating, just Dana rubbing the red rings on her wrists and telling the rookie, "Thank you for slowing down." Marla tried to shout impersonation, but the room had changed. The air had shifted, and order in the good sense had finally walked onto our street. That should have been the end. It was the pivot. Because while the medics worked on Mr. Alvarez and the crowd dissolved into doorways, a convoy of black SUVs slid past, like a thought you don't want to finish. Rowan leaned in and told Dana, "We need to talk." She looked at me with that mix of apology and promise that marriage sometimes requires and said, "Stay with our girl." I agreed because I trust her, because I've learned that love sometimes looks like letting the professional go do the thing that keeps strangers alive, even when it scares you. 15 minutes later, shots popped somewhere east, a sound that makes your organs clench. My phone buzzed with videos posted by people who spell judgment with an E and certainty with a period, and then a text from a number I didn't know, "Stay inside." A second convoy returned, doors thudding open, two men dragging a bloodied HOA board member who could barely stand. He lifted his face to me and rasped, "She knows where the files are." They shoved him back in the SUV. Rowan told me to hand over anything Dana kept off the grid, and I realized I could either argue or listen to the part of my brain that remembered Dana's fingertip tapping the side of our old grandfather clock weeks ago when our kid asked what classified meant. The panel clicked with a secret sigh. Behind the pendulum sat a slim black case with a keypad and a seal I didn't recognize. I hadn't touched it more than a second when the kitchen window blew inward glass across tile boots on hardwood men in masks yelling to check the clock. How could they know? Officer Harris, the older cop, did what older cops do. He stood between strangers with guns, and a family took a round and stayed upright longer than most would. I shoved the case behind blankets in the hall closet and dragged breath into my body while a rifle barrel lifted toward the stairs, where my daughter was crying into the dog's neck. "Drop your weapons," Dana said from the shattered doorway voice like rebar wrapped in silk. The room stopped. One man ran diving through glass and into night. The other froze long enough to feel the front sight post kiss his poor choices. Officers swarmed, hands, knees, cuffs, the whole choreography of ending a bad idea. Dana grabbed our girl mid-step, pressed her face into her shoulder. Whispered the kind of promise you only say when you intend to keep it with your life, then knelt by Harris, palms bright with work, steadying pressure, steadying everything. We caught 5 minutes of quiet that tasted like metal. I asked about the case, and she opened it with a sequence I could never reproduce, papers and thumb drives and photographs of smiling meetings that looked ordinary until you traced the red circles, contractors, county officials, a developer who never loses bids, and yes, a few polished faces from our charming HOA. "It starts small," Dana said, not looking up. "Then the rules become a currency, grass-length mailbox types, fines to cover. Legal fees. Shell nonprofits, a slush of favors. And if you pull the wrong thread, someone decides you don't get to keep tugging." Headlights washed the room. A man in a long coat knocked like a gentleman, but carried himself like an ultimatum. "Captain Mercer," he said, her rank not a courtesy, "this isn't just your fight anymore. Share the files coordinate, or you'll be protecting your family alone." He didn't threaten. He didn't have to. Dana closed the case, snapped the panel shut, and told him we'd coordinate on our terms, that we wouldn't bleed the neighborhood dry to win some secret war. He held her stare, adjusted his hat, and left us with a silence that made the clock's tick feel like a countdown. Here's the thing I learned on Birch Lane. Order is a tool, not a god. Rules either hold the weak up or they're just a ladder for the smug to climb. Marla wanted the kind of tidy that punishes kindness, and she got a flash of lights and a lesson she'll replay every time she sees a porch light hit gold. The board member who bled on our lawn will probably talk, not because he grew a conscience, but because fear is an honest translator. Mr. Alvarez kept his ramp. The little library filled back up in 2 days with mysteries and cookbooks, notes tucked inside from people who didn't know where else to put their gratitude. And me. I sleep lighter now, one hand on the dog, the other on the railing, listening for engines that don't announce themselves. I know we're not done. The files don't erase what they expose. But that night ended with my wife standing in our ruined doorway, our girl on her hip, and a promise between us that didn't need to be said out loud. We're going to break their grip without letting it turn us mean. Tell me what you think. Where's the line between keeping order and abusing it? Who crossed it first on our street? And if you were in my shoes, grandfather clock and all, would you hand those files over to the suits or take them straight to the sunlight? Drop your take below, share it with a neighbor who needs to hear it, and let's talk about what justice looks like where you live.